it's almost 2 years, at least 1.5 years, since I did this, talking in front of a camera, in a longer format, podcast style, quote unquote. Sorry. So yeah, today I kind of force myself a little bit, or a lot maybe, to do that and to upload this on YouTube, because I think it's important, and I think it's not only important for people to hear that and whoever resonates with it, but also for myself, if not specifically for myself, to get that out of my head and in a kind of stream of consciousness way, to just talk about creative stuff, and in relation to maybe healing and what's going on in the inner world, and based on the suggestion from my wife, the title of this episode podcast thing today will be the challenges of being a creative individual. So even if it sounds a little pretentious, I kind of like it. And so it's a very good topic, I would say, with a lot of things and a lot of elements to expand on. So yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is one of the biggest blessings and the biggest challenges in the same stream, in the same source base, basically, that's providing the creativity, is also providing a lot of internal imbalance and emotional ups and downs. And ups, of course can be beautiful and very ecstatic, and feeling a lot of passion while whatever you do, drawing, painting, making music, dancing, making movies, making maybe games, or making the concepts behind all these things, or one of these things. There's so much potential to expand yourself while doing that, but there's also, for a lot of artists, I would say, this internal hassle, sometimes to such a degree that it undermines the positive feelings. And today, or the past days, is kind of that time for me, is where the emotions and also the physical exhaustion is so high that, yes, I enjoy the art, and as long as I'm doing something artistic and creative, there's still this feeling of being blessed and being very grateful for being able to do that. But at the same time, as soon as I step away from the art, there's this feeling of drainage or exhaustion, when, interestingly, always when not doing art. So today, sleep was exhausting, actually, because of some minor ailments or physical problems based on emotional disturbances. So yeah, this draws back to the point I was just making. The same source for positive creational potential, or for all the positive feelings and potentialities that are swirling around in this field of consciousness, in this unisono field. I like to call it unisono consciousness, which is this field that reunites all ideas, all consciousnesses, all beings, all souls, basically the source, the field of source. The same source the artist draws from his inspiration and all the positive traits is also the same source that kind of brings a lot of suffering. And there's this saying that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I agree in part with that quote, with these words, but at the same time, I think for some artists, not everyone, of course, there is always an exception to the rule, people who seem just fine without any emotional problems or up and downs or depressions or anxieties or physical ailments or whatever. But I think a lot still and yeah, a lot of artists and a lot of creative people kind of have that, kind of resonate with that. And if you maybe feel this could be in part you, like there's this emotional up and down, and sometimes the inspiration is so huge that it's like you climb the mountain and you're on peak of the mountain, and you just look down into the valleys and then look down onto the forest and gaze at the sky and the birds and the sun and feel the sun rays glistening on you and on the leaves, and everything just seems so harmonious, and it just makes sense intuitively. You don't have to think about it, you don't have to put it into words, because you also cannot put it into words. That's one thing. The other thing is you kind of feel it so intuitively and so intrinsically necessary that there is no other way in those moments. And sometimes these moments are big extensions, like a week or most of the week, you could say, where every day is just you get up and you just no matter how you feel physically, at least from my perspective, even if I didn't sleep a lot, or if the exhaustion is still great from the day before, or if I've got a lot of pain in the body, or whatever it is, there's still, as soon as I sit down to do the work, the artistic work, the creative work, the passion strikes through, and the inspiration with, yeah, these two forces strike through with such furiosity and greatness that all around it is basically null. It's not important. It's not part of the essential. It's not part of this quintessential principle and flow that you're following when you're doing the art. But other days, you're still doing it. But today, for instance, I didn't do anything creative yet, I would say. I don't remember, at least. But I've also don't have the best memory, so maybe I did something. But some days it's just a lot of procrastination and being really like feeling depressed or feeling unmotivated. And then, of course, all the physical stuff and all the emotional stuff gets enhanced in some sense. So yes, if you can resonate with these dictums or with these ideas, don't take them as these apodictic ultimate truths. Always put your own perspective into it. And this is in no way to say like, oh yes, of course, let yourself be overwhelmed by these feelings and just, yes, let them be. That's one thing that's important, to let them be and to accept them to a certain degree if you can. I very often find myself not being able to do that, even though I should, quote unquote, should. But yes, to still see those feelings and see those emotions and those inner mechanisms unfold. May they be good, may they be bad, may they be neutral, and just take them as part of the whole, or part of life, of human life, I would say. Not part of the essence, because I think the essence and the soul is way bigger than that. Is way bigger than any of the emotional disturbances there are, or the emotional, valleys that you sometimes have to walk through. But again, this is also a blessing, and sometimes the blessing comes way after the fact that you feel that way. You may feel horrendous in a moment, and then 2 weeks later, or maybe half a year later, or a year later, something, you realize, looking back, hey, this actually was a kind of a lecture, kind of a lesson that I had to walk through. So I can be able to draw from this source, this emotional pot, this pool of emotions and ideas, to draw from that and to incorporate in a positive, life-affirming, maybe slowly unfolding, maybe ecstatically explosive way, whatever it is. It can be in all types of arenas. In the painting realm, it can be in the musical realm. Musical realm is, of course, the most obvious, where you can express your feelings directly, with, for instance, singing, or the smashing your fingers into the keyboard if you're angry, or playing very softly and elegantly in pianissimo, when you feel very maybe low key and lower energy or melancholic or something like that. Playing fast when you feel excited and about and as if you're about to embark on a new journey or about to climb on top of a mountain. I think this classical, typical cliched image that I have in mind that reoccurs. But it's the same source for all the positive creative potential and the creational processes you embark on, as well as the not so nice feelings and sensations. And I think it's very necessary. This is one of the challenges to not really wrestle with or not really see as an obstacle, but just as a part of the whole process. If you can, if you have that, a lot of artists I feel have that. This feeling of not doing the work good enough, or not being good enough, or not having put enough energy and effort into one project. And sometimes this can lead to this perfectionistic type of energy that you just don't want to let go of a project, and you just do it continuously and repeat the same point over and over again until it's shifting slightly but not noticeably for anyone besides yourself maybe. And even then there's the big question mark of, is it better now? Is it actually worse than before? Or because in a lot of cases the intuitive insight that arises within your own field of consciousness, and when you put it down for paper, let's say you write a little essay, or you write a little short story or a novel, or you write a concept for a video game or for a movie maybe, oftentimes the intuitive insight that came before any rational thought was manifested, has formed in your head. This is very often the correct way and the correct answer to whatever question you have. Maybe it's just a little cute short story, something inspirational for others to read. Maybe it's just for some friends or for some family members to read. It doesn't have to address a whole big audience or half of the globe or something. Or it can only be for you. When you write something in your notebook, like a little journal entry, and it's almost like a little comforting story that you tell yourself, but not in a falsifying your own essence, or your telling yourself lies or something. No, it's more like this getting out the stream of consciousness out of your head and really putting it on paper, putting it into some artistic framework, or some creative framework. And yes, this is basically one of the challenges, but another one of the challenges, another one of the blessings is to be able to express yourself so deeply because you feel so deeply. And I think this is the quintessential point. I'm not sure, I went on a tangent back there. I don't remember what I started on, but it's basically this knowingness that this sensibility and this sensitivity, that you get affected easily by stuff around you, some little environmental change, some change in some friend circle, or someone says something and actually didn't mean it in a harmful way, or when you ponder on it and it's really getting to you, and then you question your own self-worth or the worth of your work or the worth of your art. And at the same time, if someone makes a compliment, you're like through the roof, and it's, oh my God, this is nice, it's really wonderful that it can inspire someone. Basically, that is, at least from my perspective, what's most important to me, is to have this feedback of, oh yes, this is inspiring to me. If someone listens to the music and says, oh wow, this was really heart-touching, or this was really gave me this whole world in my head, it created this plethora of existence on another realm in my imagination, or this, it just triggers your own fantasy, your own visual world, or maybe even acoustical world. Maybe someone else gets inspired to write a different song or different composition, or it really doesn't matter what you draw your inspirations from, or what is the the result of said inspiration. If someone gets inspired to maybe do something very just practical and non-artistic at all, but it's just a day-to-day, I don't know, part of a day-to-day exercise or routine. And maybe it could really be literally exercising. If someone exercises while listening to your music and it motivates them to keep going, that's also, that's also beautiful. It's also part of in some sense, instilling beauty and instilling motivational, inspirational, and life-affirming potential into the world. But if you don't, put it out into the world, then all this sensibility kind of gets clustered inside, and it feels overwhelming. It feels like too much. For instance, right now I'm sweating heavily, even though I'm wearing this ostrich sweater. But I'm sweating heavily because, at least that's my theory, right? In the moment coming up, that this is transmuting all this stuck stuff inside into heat and into an expression of the vocal cords. So basically transposition from mental and emotional and physical sensations into the vocal verbal communicative channel, and also into heat. I feel a lot of heat right now. So the first challenge we kind of touched on was these extremes, the extremities of feeling. So just first of all, the possibility to feel one extreme that deeply and then the other extreme that deeply, sometimes maybe even in the span of a few hours or one day or something, sometimes in the span of a week or in the span of a month or maybe longer. This is a real challenge, but it's also where a lot of wisdom comes out and a lot of creative potential comes out. And the second challenge, I think, would be the sensibility to actually be affected that easily by your environment. If you look at a flower, for instance, or if you look at a tree or a leaf or a bird, or you hear a bird sing, and you just sit there maybe in the sun and you just close your eyes and you just listen to this bird, and there's this thought or this feeling of this is necessary, this is inevitable, there's no other way the world could be, this is essential for the soul, this beauty and the expression of this beauty, not just keeping this beauty inside, but actually transporting it outwards and affecting others. And if you see it from the perspective of the bird doesn't do that voluntarily. It doesn't go like, today I should make someone else's day a little bit brighter by tweeting and by making my bird sounds. But he's just singing his song, and he's maybe in his own world, or who knows what the bird imagines. But it's just part of the instinct, part of the biological processes within all kinds of animals and creatures, and also with humans. We tend to run on such an automatic mode, autopilot almost, and unconsciously doing things, the way we move, the way we act or gesture, or the way we sound, the way we phrase things, the way we eat and drink, the way we organize our time or not organize our day or not organize our day, making lists. I'm a huge fan of making lists, for instance, and then throwing all of that over again. This is all can be conscious, but it can be also very unconscious. Even if it's something that seems, if you step back, this is actually very intricate or very complex from a just this mechanistic point of view, but in the context of the whole, in the context of all things uniting and all things having their own thoughts and their own intentions, it then seems, when you take a step back, this is actually complex. How can this happen unconsciously? But it does for some reason. As soon as there's a certain amount of patterns ingrained enough, deeply enough in the brain, or also the not only neurophysiologically, but also in the nervous system in general. But yeah, what was my point? yes, this is actually another challenge. If you suffer from, so one of the challenges, and all of these challenges, take them as challenges and as blessings equally, um, and try to find your own voice within these challenges and your own expressions. There's this saying also, to be unapologetically yourself. This is what I'm struggling with in the public sphere, at least, because at home and just I'm doing art basically for myself. I'm doing all these things like drawing, painting, making music, writing books and novels, and making sculptures and figurines and things like that. It's all avenues of expression, not because it's definitely to be seen by someone or definitely to be, cherished by someone and inspiring someone. This would be like, this is one of my goals now, but I did it for years, and even as a kid I just did it automatically. It just is so deeply ingrained in my DNA, and I think that's for most artists the way. If you really are an artist to the core and really passionate and truly creative for all your being, it's just you must do it, and there's no other way. And there's no saying, okay, let's just pause for a week or two or something, and you feel totally normal with it. Something, no, you deeply miss it. If you really make a pause that long, you will deeply miss it. And when you get back to it, you're like, oh, thank God, now I can breathe again, or now I can have my daily cup of coffee and my daily cup of tea, my food, my nourishment, basically. So yeah, it's very deeply ingrained. But one of the challenges, first challenge, feeling these extremes, even having the capacity to feel these extremes. The second challenge would be like having this hypersensitivity to external changes, to environmental changes and stuff, which is also a blessing, like we said. Because out of those pools, out of feeling the extremes and out of this being affected easily by things outside and inside, you can draw from a whole pool of ideas, a whole set of creative potentialities, and to make them manifest in the real world, to hopefully inspire yourself and inspire others. Then another one would be, because I'm going on many tangents and I'm like, yeah, very focused on things, but at the same time not, so I'm jumping around, is the focus or the lack thereof. A lot of creatives, a lot of artists have this problem, quote unquote, I would say, in the school system, that it's there's this you can read a page, you have to learn something, for instance, you read a page, and at the end of the page you don't know what you have read, you don't know where you are. If it doesn't matter if it's a story, if it's a history book, if it's mathematics. For me especially, mathematics, it was the case. But it's you're at the end of the page, of the chapter, next page. Sometimes I read 5 pages, and at the end of 5 pages was like, wait, did I just read 5 pages on autopilot and was gone completely? Like after the second sentence, nothing went into my focus. I feel like this is a blessing, even though it doesn't feel in the first years, especially if you know, depends on how rigid the school system is, but most school systems, I would say, still not very supportive environment for artists, especially if it's not an artistically oriented school, but just general educational system. This lack of focus and this capacity or problem that you go on tangents, that you associate easily. So this is a big plus, I would say, for creating all kinds of creative projects. Because if you, for instance, let's say you have 2 projects, and you work on one project and you go on a tangent there, and you get inspired by some little thing, like a word in a document, maybe it's just a few notes you played on the piano, and then this new world opens up, this new door, and so it informs the other world. So it's kind of, if you deal with 2 worlds, let's say one project here, one project is, let's say, a book, and the other project is music. Then if you write a few sentences, oh, hey, this is actually nice, this would be interesting, how would this character sound in terms of a melody? How would this character behave if it was a it was a harmonic structure, how would this melody actually be how would it exist within a book, within the frame of a novel? How would that look like? Or it doesn't have to be this kind of logical deduction, or it doesn't have to be this thought of chains of thought. But it can be as simple as you play something and then you're like, oh, just came out of the blue, because you rested with the one thing you did before. When you, for instance, if you know that when you focus on something too much and you try to get out the juice of the orange, citrus, whatever, some fruit analogy, and you sit there and you try for, let's say, 10-15 minutes to get perfect phrasing, or a certain way how to phrase these sentences or this part of the story, or how to better describe a character, or to make the dialogue more natural, or whatever it is, and when you ponder on it, you really don't get to the best solution, I feel. Sometimes for some people especially, it can be that they don't get any further at all. If they just sit in front of the empty paper, they can do that for days and nothing changes. But the important thing is there to just step away and not like do nothing and just say, okay, let's just for the next days not work on anything creatively at all. Like if you really need to do that, okay, do that as a pause, as a mental clarification pause, a kind of a how do you say, this purification of the maybe too chaotic cluster of thoughts or ideas. That can also be helpful, but for me, usually, individually speaking, it's not longer than a day or so that's really possible to step away from something, or maybe two, until you really start to miss it again. But yes, if you for instance work on some text and you get stuck there, don't just go away and say like, oh no, this is terrible, how do I get unstuck, and then try everything to fix that thing that maybe is not even broken but seems broken in the moment, and you just don't get the hold of the ideas because you're too logically oriented or too linearly minded in that moment or in these moments. But just step away, do something else creatively, or something else not as creatively, maybe learning a language or something, or I don't know. People do all kinds of things, crossword puzzles, watching TV, reading the newspaper, whatever, going out in nature. For me, it's always the most helpful thing is just to go on a long walk in nature, or just noodling around some melodies on the piano, just improvising something that's not. It's like something that you basically always do, and then you find some new key, or you find some new interaction between two tones, some new atmosphere, some new feeling, and then maybe out of this arises some inspiration for the text, or the other way around. If you find yourself like feeling stuck on the music part, and you just can't seem to get a good melody out of it, the key is not to just try to push the same thing again and again, push the same keys and trying to make this melody, this concept that you already have, work somehow, but to step away completely and either do something totally different within the same medium, within the same arena of the same playing arena, same creative arena, or something completely different. And that this could then be, for instance, you draw something or you write something down. And yeah, this is another one of the challenges. The focus is to get really focused on something, on one thing, which can be very beneficial, this hyper focus, because it's bringing you the stream of consciousness, free flow, getting in the state of the zone, this infamous zone state, more easily if you're able to really focus on your craft and you love it with all your heart. but also it can make you a little bit blind if you're too focused. And this is also one of the blessings for being this, attention disorder kind of personality, to be distracted by every little thing. You have to really make your own space, and if you need very quietness and not be surrounded by a lot of people or by any phones or TVs or any noises or food or smells or something that's really intense and really triggers your senses, your external senses, you need to first create that space. So it's like a sacred space that you can really focus on your craft. Yes, with a unilateral, focused vision, so to speak. But at the same time, if there's hyperfocus with a problem, and it's just seen as a problem and nothing else, the solution will most definitely, I can at least guarantee for myself and for a lot of other artists, will arise when this hyperfocus will be broken and you actually step away from this and get some detachment. Although detachment is difficult, I get it. If you're passionate about something, detaching from it, if even for a day or two, it's difficult. But if you do something completely different, also maybe creatively motivated, then these things can inform each other. And so this, for me, it's like 10 minutes piano and then maybe half an hour writing something, and then again maybe half an hour or maybe a few hours doing something in music and being really driven into that. And then maybe there comes this point of, okay, now the juice is running out in this, let's switch back, let's turn to the left or something in my case, and draw something, paint something. And yeah, this is I think one of the challenges and blessings is the lack of focus, this open focusness, that associations come quickly and easily with the creative mind, but of course also when there's logic needed, or day-to-day day-to-day life and more practical bureaucratic stuff, paper stuff, then this is not the best, of course, because the frustration level is very low, for me at least, with with these kinds of things. But yeah, see it as a blessing as well. Yes, for me the last weeks it was actually more a switch, I could say, almost on a weekly basis now, the focus of creational field. Back a few years ago, I remember it was more spontaneous. Even it was a few minutes this, a few minutes that, and so you get easily like chaotic. Still chaos is very present, but I feel like the periods of focus, positive focus on a creative project have extended. So this week it was mostly like drawing. This thing I drew in the back, for instance, it's painting for Chronicles of a Myth, Athena, or some doodles about some sketches for cat stickers or for characters for a book. Yes, and the week before that, for instance, was completely focused on music and just a little bit on sculpture, music and sculpture, for instance. And the week before that, it was just totally writing. It was almost all of it was writing and a little bit of sketching for getting a kind of a switch, because I need this variation. So yeah, this is maybe another challenge, fourth or fifth challenge we are now. I don't remember. Is this need for variation, and at the same time a need for having a system, or having some kind of framework that you impose, quote unquote, impose on yourself. Because if you just do things randomly, like really just jumping on this train of spontaneity and just jumping on everything sporadically with, oh yeah, let's do this, and every 10 minutes there's something different, then a lot of open threads will be created that are difficult to close. Either that, they're very difficult to close and you will procrastinate for months or years to come, or they won't be closed at all, because you have this feeling of, oh, this is of no value, why did I even start this? So there's definitely also something for me very, very important to learn. one of the most difficult things is to not be too engaged with something new that's coming up. To say, okay, this is a really nice idea, I love this now in the moment at least. Let's put it aside, let's put it on paper, let's put it in a, you know, audio workstation or something if it's compositional, or if it's a painting idea for a painting, let's just make a little sketch and the basic frame for the composition, but don't engage in the whole thing yet. If you have something else started that's really, really important to you, that's really important for your soul basically, and for you to be expressed and be brought into the world. So yes, this is something to keep in mind. I would say creating open threads. Yes, for instance, I have how many? I think close to 10 open things at the moment, between 8 and 10 open projects. Some are interacting with each other, like a book and music. They're interacting with each other, and some vector designs. But a lot of things are big projects on their own, and yes, they interact with the others, but they're too big to tackle in full focus without you know, any break in between. So I have to, you know, just put that idea somewhere and then say, yeah, let's go with it. If there's really flow, let's go with it for some time, but don't over engage in it. Come back to the thing that's most important to you at the moment. And yes, so some challenges. We're already at 37 minutes or something, 37.9. Let's call this part 1, challenges of a creative individual. For anyone who was listening and who could resonate with this would be very interesting if we had some dialogue, some creative dialogue either in the comment section or somewhere on social media, or yes, if you just leave your mark somewhere, a little comment, a little idea, a little spark of inspiration, something that you would like to hear maybe in a future episode of this podcast or whatever it is. It was very spontaneous. Yesterday I thought like, oh yes, I have to make a video, I have to talk to the camera. This is probably what what I have to do now, in part, to get out this chaotic energy or this stuck energy. Yes, it would be really nice if there was some feedback or some ideas from you guys. Thank you. Goodbye.